Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here then hi, welcome. You may want to check out my first video, so part 1 of this that I done not that long ago, and all about differences that we have found in Australia since moving from the UK. As this video done very well, I thought it would be quite good to do a part 2. Now I do have quite a lot of things that I have noticed that are different to the UK, and by me pointing out these differences it's purely just some fun and it just lets people see how things are different in different areas of the world. So now that we have that out of the way, let's get into point number 1 of part 2 of this video. So washing machines. One thing I have noticed since being here is that washing machines and kitchens just do not go together, and living in the UK for literally all of my life, our washing machine was always in our kitchen. Only our most recent house was when we had a laundry room, which was literally, so it's called a utility room, and it was literally just off our kitchen. And I know in Australia, all the houses that we've looked at, the washing machines are never in the kitchen. They always have a separate room, I think it's called a laundry room here, or yeah, a utility room, but it's always separate to the kitchen, and it's something that I definitely do love. I think a laundry room is just the best thing ever. Our house that we are in just now is actually a separate area to our house completely, so we have to come out of our house and into a little outbuilding where we have our washing machine. There is space for a dryer, but I mean the weather here is incredible, so I don't really know why you would waste your money on a dryer. I mean, I literally put washing out in the morning and within an hour my full load can be dry. And yesterday I actually forgot about my washing, albeit it was just a small one. But it was 5 o'clock at night and it was a hot day. I popped it out and literally within an hour the full lot was dry. So I don't really know why you would waste money on having a dryer here. Again, something that we definitely had in the UK, especially for things like your towels and your sheets. But here, yeah, I personally wouldn't have one. I know people that do. I don't think there's any need for it. But you do have space for that. We also have a fridge in our laundry room, which again I think was just left over, but Ewan uses it for like beers or maybe like things that you want to freeze that you won't use kind of every day. What else is in there? We have a sink in there. Again, that's something that I never experienced in the UK, so it's so good having it here. And just more storage. So our laundry room is pretty full, but yeah, it's definitely a difference for us coming from the UK. Number 2, a difference that I absolutely love is chicken salt. In the UK, you would most likely always get salt on your chips. You are never asked if you want normal salt or chicken salt. And when I first got asked this, I didn't even know what it was. Obviously, I know it's called chicken salt, but I didn't really know what this was that was going on my chips, and I said no to it. And then one place I went, we just got it, and I actually went back to the place to say what is on my chips because I am loving this, and the person told me it was chicken salt, and it's very common here in Australia. Anytime I now order chips from any bar, I will not accept the chips unless they have chicken salt on it. It is honestly the best thing ever, and it's just something that I wish they had in the UK because I know everyone would absolutely love it. So my next one is mullets. Do you know when you come into a country and there's always some stereotypical like thing attached to it? Or for example, in Scotland, I think everyone thinks we have ginger hair and rides a Highland cow to work. And when we came to Australia, obviously you have this vision in your head that there's mullets and barbecues. And literally, since being in Sydney, I am so shocked at how many mullets I see on people. It's just a very normal thing here. Like people go to the hairdressers and ask, or the barbers, and ask for a mullet. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, and I need to express that. I think it's just strange. It's just strange seeing people having mullets, and they're very common here, and I didn't think it would be as common in a city. Obviously I thought maybe more country, but in the city we see so many people with mullets, and kids have mullets, and yeah, I love it, but it's just something that we don't see that in the UK, and I'm sure someone will correct me and say that their cousin's son's dog has a mullet. That's fine, but where I'm from in Scotland, we never ever seen people with mullets, and yeah, I just love it. I love that it's a thing here. Just to be clear as well, not everyone in Scotland has ginger hair, and not everyone that I know rides a Highland cow to work, just point that out. No one I know rides a Highland cow to work. So my next difference is going back to supermarkets. And this is a really positive one for me, because in the UK, supermarkets had everything you could possibly want or need. So my local Tesco had a section of clothing, I had a section for electricals, I had a section for TVs, I had a section for toasters and curtains, and anything you would need you could get in your local Tesco. Whereas here, the supermarkets sell purely food, and you do have a section, like a home section, but it's not, you wouldn't go to Coles to find a TV. So you can only really get maybe like a toaster, and it's usually a very small selection. But it's certainly something that I noticed straight away when I went to the supermarket thinking I could get quite a lot of things. However, the reason I've said I think it's positive is in the UK it was easy just to go to Tesco, and it meant that other kind of shops and local businesses were failing because nobody was going there, because everything that they were selling you could easily pick up in Tesco. And I do think it's a positive here because it makes you go to other shops, and you end up obviously giving them your business because it's something that you can't conveniently get in Coles. And the reason I say conveniently is that's the reason that everyone just went to Tesco, because it was convenient, and it meant that obviously other areas were, yeah, it was a shame for other businesses. So although it can be frustrating at times because you just, especially as a mum of two, I think it would be easier just to go to one shop and get everything I need. It also makes me go to other areas, and I think that's so much better. And I would say on that note, the same also applies for fashion. I feel like all my stores I used to buy from in the UK were big chains, and here you certainly find a lot more boutiques and local businesses, family run businesses, instead of your big chains. Obviously we have a huge shopping centre within walking distance of where we live, and there are big chains in there, but there's also a section of it that's just your independent fashion retailers. And although clothing can be a little bit more expensive here, I would definitely say it's more expensive than the UK. I can also see why, and it does make you want to shop in the local kind of retail shops and not the big chains. Okay, so next one, and something that I have noticed to be different, is online shopping. So I don't do as much online shopping here, and the reason for that is it takes a little bit longer to come. Again, in the UK, it's not a positive thing by any means, but in the UK you could order something in the morning and have it delivered in the evening, or you could order it and have it delivered next day. That was the very norm, and I feel like here you don't really get that. The shipping itself, I've noticed, is a lot more expensive here. Most shipping is between $10 and $15, and I mean that's like £5 and £10 back home. I very rarely would buy something back home unless it was offering free shipping, or the average shipping tend to be about £2 or £3.99. So that's a big thing here. I don't tend to do as much online shopping unless I'm trying to find something specific, or try and do a big order and I'm maybe getting a big discount and also getting free shipping on top of that. So it's something I would definitely say. In terms of then returning things, or I've noticed that maybe if I'm selling something, like I tend to sell a lot of my clothes on, or I like to buy second-hand clothes, the shipping is really expensive. Most things I've shipped out, so if I've sold a top for say $10, which I literally just sold the other day, when I took it to the post office, I was $14 to then send it out, and that was the basic, no signing, no tracked. And yeah, I've not really got my head round the postal service yet. There may be other like couriers that are cheaper, and I'm sure there are, but certainly just Australia Post, it tends to be a lot more expensive than what it would be back home. Now again, just for reference of those that are watching that are purely from Australia, when I sold a lot of my clothes or my kids' clothes online, I could send for as low as £2.85, so that's like $5–6 here. And that was the that was a basic service, but it's certainly done the job. And when you're selling items at much cheaper value, it helps to have postage being low as well. So yeah, that's definitely something that I wouldn't say is as good as the UK. I feel like the UK postage is much cheaper than here. And my next difference, which is something that I have noticed, again, living in Sydney, it may be different in other areas, but Sydney definitely starts its day very early. You can get up at 5, probably even earlier, and head out, and there will be people out and about starting their day, and not necessarily just for work. People are out to see the sunrise, or out to get their morning coffee. It's just a very early start place. And another thing I love, it suits me perfectly, is this early rise and early bed, and I just think for me that is my lifestyle to a T. But again, it's purely Sydney. I've noticed that things start to close down earlier, but they start really early in the morning, and it's really good for just getting people up and out. You see people running, out walking their dogs. It's just nice. I suppose the weather helps that as well though, doesn't it? Obviously in the UK you do not want to get out of your bed early because it's so cold, and it's usually quite dark in the morning in the UK, usually raining. So it's not really enticing you to go out, whereas here it's nice to get up and yeah, just get outside and start your day very early. I think I mentioned this one in a previous video, however it's all about driving, and one of the main things that's really important to know if you are coming over to Australia is that you can't park on the opposite side of the traffic. That made no sense. So if you're driving up the left side of the road and there's a space on the right side of the road but facing that way, you can't just literally cross over and park in it. So you have to park facing the way the traffic is going. And yeah, this is something, again, I live in Sydney, chances of you being able to even cut across lanes and park, let alone then try and get back out facing oncoming traffic, just is something that you don't even want to think about. But certainly going on quieter, like more rural roads, I've been somewhere recently and there was literally a space on the other side and I could have just cut across and parked in it, but the time I went up to then turn to come back with the flow of the traffic, the space was gone. And I know in the UK I wouldn't even think twice about just cutting over and parking in it. I do think it's a good thing, to be fair, because I have done that in the UK and I have found it extremely difficult to then get out, and it probably causes more accidents. So I can understand why it is a thing, but if you don't know about it, it's illegal here and you can get a fine for it. So it's just something that nobody tells you about until you're doing it, and somebody will say you're not allowed to do that. And it was only because of a previous video that I knew that you weren't allowed to do that. But yeah, certainly it's something that is very different to what we would know in the UK. And just staying on the topic of driving in cars, most cars here, I don't know if it's them all, so I don't want to say it is, but I would say 90% of cars anyway are all automatic here. I prefer a manual car, to be honest, but it's only because it's something that I've always known. But since driving an automatic, I don't honestly think I could go back to a manual car. And somebody I'm sure will correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty confident that most cars in Australia, again I'm in Sydney, but most cars are automatic. And the main difference for me coming over here is that we are miles per hour, and I say we, UK are miles per hour and Australia is kilometres per hour. So that takes a while to get your head around as well. For reference, I am now 5.5 months into our journey and I'm fine with it. My brain has totally changed over. But when we first came here, I did not know what speed I was doing. I wasn't used to it, and it really took a while because you're constantly fixated on what speed you're doing and trying to stay within the speed limit. But now I definitely feel like I've got so used to it that I think it would be now strange going back to miles per hour. And also, something that is very different to the UK is that there's a lot of more older cars here. They hold their value for longer. And again, in the UK, you almost got put off if a car had done like over, you know, kind of 90,000 miles or even probably less than that, and it lose its value very quickly. Here, cars do well over 200. Again, I need to remember that it's 200 kilometres and not miles, but our car that we have is much older and you would never know. It's very well kept, there's no rust on it. I actually don't think I've seen any cars, not that I look, but I can't really say that I've seen any cars that are like very rusty and old looking. And I'm pretty sure that some of your older cars here have probably done way more miles than you would ever imagine, and they're still driving fine. Now, I would eventually like to do a video on Australian slang because I'm still really trying to pick up on all the different words. But 2 new words that I learned this week were servo, which is a service station. I'm slowly starting to understand Australians just like to shorten words down. Like a bottle shop is called a bottle-o, and yeah, as time goes on, I'm basically trying to understand that things are just shortened down. But yes, 2 new words that I learned this week were servo and avro, which is afternoon. I hope I'm saying that right. And it's something that I hear a lot of on the radio. Oh my goodness, the radio, yes, that's another one I wanted to tell you all about. Swearing on the radio is a thing here, and I love it. You don't hear it a lot, it's not something that happens all the time, but when you do hear it, you're almost taken back because in the UK it's very, oh my goodness, not allowed to swear on TV or radio, and if somebody does, there's a full-blown apology, and it's just a bit extreme. But definitely here you hear it and it's like 11 o'clock in the morning and someone's swearing. Anyway, I'm digressing. Do love my new words. If there's any other words that you think I should have picked up on by now, then leave them below. And like I say, I'd happily do a video on that in the future. But I hope you've enjoyed this part 2. If you would like to see more, let me know. There is obviously differences that happen every single day, and I'm just trying to remember them and remember to tell you about them when it happens. So yeah, I hope you are enjoying this, and I will see you all in my next vlog.